Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, multiple sources have advised BoxingScene.com, a website you need to follow, right? And it has been reported, quite frankly, in the press that Brandon Rios, 30-0 with one draw, 22 knockouts, will fight Mike Alvarado, 33-0 with 23 knockouts, this October. Right? Apparently the contracts are being worked out and signed right now. Let's talk about this fight. You have two hard punchers. One is 5'8", the other is 5'9". Neither has much of a height advantage or disadvantage. Neither will be able to fight underneath the other. Rios is a hard puncher who has only gone the distance once since 2008. He's moving up to 140 pounds. Pay close attention to the weight. Most of his fights have been at 135 pounds. Even a fight like his last fight against Richard Abril, where he didn't make weight. He only weighed 137 pounds for that fight. And let me point out, that Abril fight is a fight that's up on YouTube that you need to watch. Because, in my opinion, even though I picked Rios to win that fight, in my opinion, he got absolutely dismantled. I thought he lost that fight by several rounds, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to give the money back to the casino. But let's just say that anyone who picked Rios going into that fight certainly had to be surprised at how that fight turned out. Just how undressed and embarrassed Rios was in that fight. Now, in the fight, he looked like a pattern fighter, right? There are times in that fight where Abril, the taller fighter, right, lankier, was operating from distance. There were times in that fight where Abril didn't even have to tie Rios up, right? Rios would come inside, and Abril was able to protect his body, knowing that Rios could not take a step back to change the angles, right? Rios threw the same punches all night. The fight is a masterpiece, quite frankly. Abril should have won a wide, unanimous decision. Let's cut to the chase here. Rios versus Alvarado. I like Alvarado in the fight. Now, Alvarado got tested in his last two fights. One against Britas Prescott, the other against Mauricio Herrera. But understand, both Prescott and Herrera are underrated boxers. Both know how to fight off their back foot. Both have snapping jabs and can make Alvarado pay for coming forward. If you want to see the blueprint on how to beat Mike Alvarado, I would encourage you to look at the first 5 rounds of the Prescott fight, where Prescott outlanded Alvarado by 2-1, and the first round of the Alvarado-Herrera fight, where Herrera literally has a masterpiece round and makes Alvarado look limited. Here's the problem. Besides the weight, right? Alvarado is a big man at 140 pounds. He has come in weighing as much as 148 for a fight, right? He also, in addition to being physically bigger, not taller, but physically bigger, has a huge punch at 140 pounds, as evidenced by a 69% KO ratio, right? So to beat him, you're going to have to know how to fight on your back foot behind the jab, and you're going to have to find a way to stay away from him, right? If you try to come inside on Mike Alvarado, and if you try to stay there, you're going to get messed up. Now, I don't think Brandon Rios moves that well. I don't think he can fight on his back foot. And let me point out, too, this is a very different fight than Rios' fight against John Murray, right? Because Alvarado hits much harder than John Murray, right? You know, the knock on Murray's always been punching power. Well, here you have a heavier guy who's a heavy puncher for his division. Let me also point out, too, that Alvarado is slick. I believe he's slicker than John Murray. He has skills and knows how to use his left elbow to set up right hands, right? What I want you to do is to just take a look at Alvarado against Herrera, where he comes out. Herrera's clearly the better technician, right? You know, Herrera moves back. Herrera has a stinging jab. Herrera keeps changing the angles, right? Herrera is even able at times to operate off the ropes. But what you'll notice is that Alvarado's pretty slick too. Alvarado always seems to have his head a little behind his shoulder. And then Alvarado, this is kind of like a Duran move. When he gets up close, Alvarado is using this left elbow. It's not a punch. He's literally doing things like sticking his left elbow in there to parry and to block, you know, and to just throw off the cadence of Mauricio Herrera, right? And of course, the real secret to Alvarado is, in my opinion, the same secret to, historically, Rocky Marciano and Joe Louis, and it's leverage. Alvarado doesn't need a windup to throw very hard punches. He seems to have built-in leverage. So Alvarado is able to be right in front of you, and all he has to do is throw a short punch about, let's say, 9 inches. And if it lands, he can knock you out. So you're talking about a guy who knows how to fight inside, right? And that's rare in boxing. Who has the punch inside, right? This isn't Andre Ward, who has the skills but isn't going to knock you out. Understand, Mike Alvarado has a close to 70% knockout ratio. When he starts teeing off, even guys who have looked good against him, like Breedis Prescott, are in severe trouble, right? And the problem with fighting a Mike Alvarado is once Alvarado is able to close the distance, in other words, as in the Prescott fight, Prescott's able to fight from distance, he's able to keep that jab going early. But once Alvarado gets close enough, it's a mismatch on the inside, and it's over, right? Let me say this too. Alvarado is power punch heavy. What do I mean by that? In the Prescott fight, over 10 rounds against a guy who himself has a big punch. Let's remember, Prescott knocked out Amir Khan in the first round, right? Prescott has dynamite. It might surprise people to learn that Mike Alvarado, in a 10-round fight, threw 22 more power punches than Breedis Prescott. Also, Alvarado's not there to really jab with you. He's literally trying to come inside, cut off the ring, so he could throw those, already leveraged punches to knock you out. Against Prescott, keep in mind, Prescott's a tall guy who himself operates behind a jab and who's trying to create distance. Against Prescott, over 10 rounds, Mike Alvarado threw a total of 71 jabs. In other words, Alvarado was throwing about 7 jabs around. In other words, his game isn't to jab you to death. His game is literally to get up close and then to just hit you with very hard, short punches, right? As I said before, he's not a volume guy, as shown by the fact that Prescott outlanded him by a wide margin over the first 5 rounds. As it was, even though he beat Prescott, by knockout late. Alvarado couldn't match Prescott's volume. Look at the final CompuBox numbers. Nor can Alvarado match Rios' volume. As followers of Brandon Rios know, Rios is very high volume. And what do I mean by very? Against John Murray, who I mentioned earlier, in fact, in less than 11 rounds, Brandon Rios threw more than 1,000 punches, right? Also, in terms of jabs, whereas Alvarado, in a recent fight, the Prescott fight, threw less than 75 jabs over the course of that fight. Understand that against Murray, Brandon Rios threw 330 jabs, right? So Alvarado really needs to hurt and take Rios out to win this fight, because both guys are come-forward fighters. Both guys will know where to find each other, and Rios throws much higher volume. Here's the kicker, though. I just think that Alvarado has more skills inside than Brandon Rios. Alvarado certainly is the better body puncher than Brandon Rios. Both guys throw a mean uppercut, but Alvarado doesn't have to wind up to throw his, right? Given a fight between two guys who are going to know where to find each other, who are going to pretty much meet in the middle of the ring, and then something's got to give, I'm going to go with the bigger man with the shorter punches, right, and the heavier punches over the smaller man. I like Mike Alvarado to win this fight. I haven't seen the details on the fight. I assume it's a 10-rounder, but I like him even more if the fight is a 12-rounder. Right? Brandon Rios, to me, seems to be a guy with a punch who doesn't really have the talent level of a Mike Alvarado. Right? Let me also point out, too, Alvarado's 32 years old. He can't afford a setback in his career. I believe, given the fact that it's August and this fight's taking place in October, I believe Alvarado is going to come in tip-top shape. Let me also say, too, that both of these guys have been in wars. Neither guy has the advantage in the war department. When the bullets start flying, both of these guys stay calm and have operated in that atmosphere. I do not believe, even though Brandon Rios is the bigger name, I do not believe that Mike Alvarado is going to be intimidated at all. Right? He's fought some very tough customers. Breedis Prescott, while he might lack foot speed, he is a very tough customer. And of course, Mauricio Herrera beat Ruslan Provatnikov, right? Beat Mike Dallas, right? These are meaningful opponents that Mike Alvarado has faced. I like Alvarado in this fight. I'm expecting Alvarado to get the stoppage, but I'm going to play it more conservatively than that. I'm just going to take Alvarado to win because I expect him to be the underdog. Okay, I will agree, if I were to hedge it, I will agree that because Rios throws higher volume, if it goes to a decision, I believe Rios by decision would be a good hedge. Okay, but my primary bet, the outcome I think is going to happen, is that Mike Alvarado wins this fight, and that's going to be my primary bet on it. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for watching.